That would be fine.
As the mayor mentioned, a simple two-page report here is a financial report, and this is provided in summary, because to provide any further level of detail would be very duplicative of what we're gonna do with the budget amendment. So what this does is just provide in summary, what you've received year to date in your revenues, as well as your expenditures in the funds. So on the first page, the first 2/3 of this page is your general fund. And that is your main operating fund that drives most of the city services. You can see on your revenues that you are overperforming in some areas and pretty well right in line with other areas. Specifically, your governmental revenues is over, as well as license and permits and fines and forfeitures. Those areas are a little over budget, and we will certainly get into some of those details as we talk about the budget amendment. Overall, your revenues are at 98% of your budgeted level. That's not uncommon at this time in the year because your property taxes obviously fall in, to your first half of the fiscal year. So the majority of the government's revenues are received in the first half of their fiscal year. So this is in line with expectations. We are going to be adjusting some of the significant variances with our budget amendment, and we'll go over that shortly. Then you'll look down a little bit towards your expenditure line items. These are subtotaled by department. And you can see you only have one department that is over budget at this time, and that's inspections, and we'll detail that further with the budget amendment. But overall, you are at 63% of your total expenditure budget, with almost 1.7 in expenditures out of a $2.7 million budget. The bulk of that excess is sitting in your police department and your public works department, with also some in general administration. And we can see those specific line items shortly. Overall, you've got about $1 million left to spend in the remaining fiscal year. Below that, you have your American Rescue Plan fund. We are on, as expected, there in terms of we have received the intergovernmental revenue that we anticipated. We will make a transfer into that fund, and then the expenditures are still pending for that fund, $1 million. On the second page, you're continuing with your other governmental funds, including SWAP and your capital projects fund. Those, again, are as anticipated. We've got about half of our revenues in SWAP, a little over half, and we're tracking as anticipated for the end of the year. Earnings are up as we expect. Interest rates have certainly been up. And in your roads and streets, you're about 34% of your SWAP budget has been expended year to date there. Capital project budgets, you have received some unbudgeted revenue, to about $40,500. And then your last governmental fund is your debt service fund. Your transfers into the debt service fund are as anticipated, and it looks like we still have some additional debt service payments to make before the end of the year. Finally, you have your utility fund. Your fund 520 is tracking above expectations in your revenue area. Most of that is attributable to one-time revenues of tap fees that obviously go for system expansion expenditures. And in your expenditure line item, which also is presented by department, in total you're at 74% year to date, and that is a little over budget in your sewer collection and close in your water administration, but significantly under budget in some of your other areas that offset. All in all, there is nothing in this particular summary report that is a significant concern that we need to address, but there are some variances that we will address with the budget. Is there any questions I can answer?
In Fund 340, you said there was unexpected revenue that came in. Do we know what that approximately $40,000, what is that?
Probably LMIG would
Okay.
be my guess. I am truly speculating here, but Fund 340 is typically utilized for LMIG. I'm not sure why it wasn't budgeted, maybe we didn't know what our allocation would be, and the intent was to adjust it later, but typically that's what's been done.
Yeah, I don't think we were expecting LMIG to come in.
No, we came into compliance last year for, first in a long time. So that's LMIG money to actually do, Hammond Road, here in the city. And once we get, fiscal 22 finished, we're slated for another 41, roughly 41.5, and that would be for Dooleytown. So, but yes, that is LMIG.
Can you go over 400, the debt service revenue?
So, typically, any revenue in a debt service fund is a transfer from other funds that are paying for that debt service.
Mm-hmm.
So without being very necessarily new, without getting more involved in the accounting system, but I can certainly look at where that transfer comes from. It would be one of your other governmental funds, most likely the general fund, so that I can research that and confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Underneath Fund 520, Utility Fund, expenditure for 433 sewer collection. Am I reading this correctly, that we're $56,000 over?
That's correct.
And I can assume that trend will go through the end of the year.
Most likely. I can delve into those, expenditures and see if there's anything that might be miscoded. An amendment wasn't identified previously me coming on board, and I wasn't comfortable adjusting that without looking into it a little bit further. So that's why you're not gonna see an amendment for that line item. Let me just back that up. That may be the prepaid sewer capacity that's gonna cover that. Yes. Yes, we will be making an amendment to that line item.
That's where they, prepaid.
Charlotte Place.
Yes.
Yeah, so that will be rectified with recording that additional sewer capacity for Charlotte Place.
So just so I understand correctly, that this overage would be covered once the payment for Charlotte's Place is accounted for.
Once the amendment adjusted, when we do our budget amendment here shortly, we will report an increase in revenue for the prepaid capacity that's been sold, and we'll do an accompanying increase in the expenditure for the extent of that sewer capacity. So when we make that adjustment, it will cover that overage.
Gotcha. I was just trying to figure out why we were so far over, and if it's because Charlotte's Place and we just haven't made the amendment for the revenue. That makes sense, right?
Yes, sir.
On that, on 520, the utility fund revenue, it's got other financing sources, 270,205. Can you go over that?
Yes, typically that is a transfer. Your other financing sources include, things that are not necessarily revenue driven, so that would be transfers in. It would also be proceeds from debt issuance, proceeds from the sale of capital assets, things of that nature. In this case, I think it's transfers, but, a week into your guys', account, so, in this case, it's project fund. I will have to look at what that line item represents, because it just says project fund. It doesn't necessarily tell me what that is. That is something I'll have to research you guys,
all right.
as a revenue line item. I don't wanna speculate. I don't wanna disclose any incorrect information. I just need to
Okay.
Would we like to proceed?
Okay, we're moving on. You guys have got plenty of time to look at it. So we will switch over to the budget amendment now. And it's a big document. All right, so, if I may explain this budget sheet, for those of you who may not have seen it before. I did tweak it a little bit when I came on board a week ago. I want to make sure it reads clearly to everyone. What you have here on the left side is obviously your chart of accounts, your account number and your account name, followed by your budget, which is the budget that you all have adopted. Then our year-to-date figures, which we'll title financial report, which is presented. And then your third column is your remaining amount as your budget currently stands. The percentage used. What we're going to be looking at and potentially voting on tonight is the kind of that middle column, the increase, decrease budget column. And then everything after that column picks it up as though the amendment is passed. And so what that does is show what the total budget would be after the amendment, and then what the remaining balance would be after the amendment. And then the final column is the budget notes that kind of help you track the dollars through the worksheet. So with that, we can get started. Okay. So as I mentioned, the general fund is your main operating fund. Most of your revenues for your taxes, license and permit charges, and per services, et cetera, are in this form here on the first page. What the purpose of the budget amendment really, as we approach it, our approach is to run essentially a budget to actual report. So that financial report that we just looked at is kind of the starting point for a budget amendment. And we look at the significant variances in each line item and determine whether it is, general business operations or whether there's a significant item that was unexpected or unanticipated and therefore not captured in the budget, and we look to capture it through a budget amendment. So that's what we're doing here today. Everything in green is a budget amendment that moves money to or from a department level. So that is the legal level of budgetary control, is the department level. So that's what we want to get your approval on, is anything that moves between those department levels. So here in the revenues for the general fund, we have 4 accounts that we're looking to adjust. And what we're doing is addressing the significant variances in these accounts. So for example, the real property taxes, in the third column, you'll note that we've received $56,000 over our anticipated budget for that line item. So our budget amendment looks to increase that line item by $50,000. Same for electric franchise at approximately $8,000. Insurance premium tax at $30,000. And then building permit revenue at $34,000. That will total a amendment to your revenue of $122,143. Now, then we turn and look at the expenditure line items to see how we're going to amend the budget. One, to account for those revenue line items. If we didn't have any expenditures that needed budget, we would let that roll into fund balance. But in this case, we do have some expenditure line items that we need to adjust. And we'll go through goes by department. So the first department is legislative. We are adjusting the travel and education and training lines there, specifically for, and you'll see this in the budget notes in that final column. Those are specifically for line items in other departments. So for example, the 5,000 in travel is going to carry over, to your community center budget. And you'll see a $5,000 adjustment there. The 5,937 in education and training is being moved directly to that next department, which is your legislative committee. So you'll notice that essentially a wash right there. And then, we don't have any amendments in the elections department. General administration does not have any, amendments there either. There are some line item adjustments as noted in the orange highlight, and that is just where the department is moving budgets within their department level. And since the department level is the legal level of budgetary control, at the legislative level where y'all get involved, a department head can move, or the mayor can move any of the lines within that department. And so that's what the orange is signifying there. But there's no amendment for that general administration department at this time. The next department is your finance administration. You will see a $10,000 adjustment there. That is an item that, likely will result in an over budget because it is an unanticipated expenditure. This is the audit cost of implementing GASB 87, which is a new lease standard GASB release. I briefed the mayor on that earlier. It is a very complex standard that the GASB has implemented or has required us to implement. And so, this is very standard that the auditors will do that for us, and that's what this $10,000 is. Municipal court does not have any amendments. And then moving to the police department. We have some personnel items in the police department, specifically salaries and overtime, as well as some other, smaller, personnel expenditure accounts. Those all total $55,643. And then there's also on the next page, page 4, an adjustment to their gasoline and diesel budget for $8,500. So all in all, we are looking to amend the police budget by $64,143.
How much was that again?
$64,143.
Oh, okay.
One page, one more page.
And you'll see that on page 4.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's in-
Okay.
Police administration just has internal reallocations they are making. And the same thing for your public works administration, and then there's no adjustments in the road and streets budget at this time. Moving down to the community center towards the bottom of page 5. There are several lines adjusted here. This is where that $5,000 from the legislative budget comes up, as well as $2,000 from, the parks utilities moving to the community center utilities. So that is that 5 and 2 make that $7,000 adjustment there. Then finally, on your last page of the general fund, we have the library, which does not have any adjustments at this time. And then inspection, which does have a $25,000 adjustment, and this is, covered by that $34,000 that we increased in building permits revenue. No adjustments to planning and zoning, and a $23,000 adjustment to code enforcement. And that is, all of these adjustments to the expenditures are covered by adjustments to the revenue, so there is no need to pull on fund balance for any of these expenditures that we're amending. Anytime you can, neutral budget is ideal, unless of course you can record a surplus. But if you have to adjust amend expenditures, you certainly, it's good to be able to amend revenues as well offset. board that and ask whatever questions you may have.
Page 5.
Yes, sir.
You said the 5,000 and the 2,000 gives you the 7.
Yes, sir.
But if I look at it, in the green, you have 3,500, 400, 3,100, for a total of 7,000.
Yes.
And then a 2,000 down at the bottom.
Yes. And then the difference between those two, the 5,000 is gonna come from your page 2, where we adjusted legislative travel.
Okay. So I had looked at that earlier today, and I meant to ask you about it then.
It didn't come exactly earlier, so I made some changes.
Well, I do see page 8, the Charlotte's Place that it mentions.
Yes, would y'all like me to move on to the other funds now, or do y'all have any general fund questions? They're really, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Page 7 is your other governmental funds, and you don't have any amendments there, there's a line item in the law. And then you pick it up on page 8. The only amendment in our, utility fund is for that Charlotte's Place prepaid sewer capacity. So you'll see that adjustment to revenue expenditure there on page 8.
It's like 52,000. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, and improvements to City Hall, what?
The 52,000 for City Hall, you said, we leave it where it's at. What page is that on?
It is on the page 3. At the top of the page,
That's where I missed it. No, I reprinted it, maybe.
that first section, of the expenditure total that's
52.5.
you'll see that 52,500 there.
We had discussed, as a council, moving that money to cover a air conditioning heating unit in one of the parks. Well, we need to include that in this amendment since it would be going to a different, I'm assuming a different department. It would be under parks and,
You have a park department where you would put that expenditure, if it can't be absorbed by the budget that exists there, you would want to make an amendment for that. We could certainly do that this evening, or you can do it at the end of your amendment.
Yeah, we had an unexpected expense over there for the AC unit. I'm assuming the heat and AC went out, I can't remember. So we were wanting to amend that money to cover that, the cost of that. And then, I think we came in a little shy on Hilton Park as far as getting our roof replaced. I don't remember what the quote was, but I don't think the 29,000 would cover it.
Do y'all remember what the, AC at, Bridges came in?
Between 11 and 12. I think we had one up at 15, one as low as like 8.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think they were apples to apples, to be honest with you, so I'm right about the middle there.
And,
Oh, it's at the,
On the finance administration, on that, the audit for 10,000, where was that moved to? I'm trying to,
it's right here,
It's just an increase in cost that by the revenues.
okay, okay.
it's right there. Right in the middle, because it was added, it was 10,000 here, and then 10,000 added in here to zero it out.
Mayor, the only other thing I can think of off the top of my head is, the coverage of those trees that need to be taken down.
We made arrangements, he's about 2 weeks out.
Do we need to adjust the funds in here? Well,
Gonna
Are we doing
be, with the stumps, he'll do them both. I don't have the exact number in my head, but it was, I believe, under 4,500. So it's like, I wanna say 42,700, 42,800. I don't know if it's in here, because it was a quote, so it hasn't been paid out, so she wouldn't have been able to add it as a line item.
I would just like to, if we include this stuff, get it done and be done, you know, hopefully not have to do another amendment.
Yeah,
Is that-
the estimate is included here, it came in at 4,500.
45,
Yeah.
okay.
So we,
That's just one quote, versus,
That's both trees and grind the stumps.
but that was just one quote. We didn't get anybody else to quote.
We had other quotes, but they were verbal quotes, and they were, 8,500 and about, 12,000. Will's Tree Service has done a considerable amount of work for the city and has done good work, and is usually one of the lesser expenses to the city. The same people that come out and assessed it each gave me a verbal.
so Ms. Bembry, would it be possible that we could ask you to somehow find an amendment, money to amend, 112 legislative committees, the beautification and tree committee? It currently has 39, 37 in it. It probably needs to be bumped up to 4,800, I'm guessing, based upon the quotes. It gives a little room. Again, this is something that came up later in that it was unexpected.
What I would advise at this time
Mhm.
is to adjust for those items that you mentioned that you know you're going to incur. And then we can identify, additional revenue line items to offset it. Alternatively, you have the contingency fund, that you could certainly pull against for those, purchases as well.
Page 2 for the, page 2 legislative.
We probably need to increase that about, 900. That would get it to 4,800. So the tree float is 4,500, you still have a little left there, and then get them more.
So we're looking to add 1,000 to the beautification committee, so that the remaining budget is
About
7,900.
About 4,900.
About 1,300 looks like we need to be moved, to bring it up to about 4,800, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the remaining balance right now is 3,937. The cost of the trees would be about 4,500. I know that, the tree committee typically does a second mulching every year.
Yeah.
And that would, if you bumped it up $1,000, it'd put you right around 4,937. So that would leave about $400, I guess, for mulch.
Yeah.
If we increased it $1,000. And we could take that from the contingency. You said it's about 15,000 in the contingency?
You have 16,842. I'm struggling to find take that out there.
So previously, if we had a project that we wanted to do, and then something comes up during the year that was unplanned, but where we had to cover a different project, we would deduct from the planned project that expenditure and move that expenditure over to the unplanned project. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I'm following you.
And that's the way it's been done in the past. And what I'm hearing you say tonight is you have to find the revenue to cover that project. But, I mean, is that,
Ideally, you're driven by your revenues and
Right.
your government entity, and you make your expenditures match your revenue.
right?
Unfortunately, we can't go generate more revenue in those cases. So that is typically, the case. Now, if you have some project and you decided to, not pursue one, then you could certainly reallocate those funds to another project.
Okay.
That certainly within the realm of possibility.
Because that's what we talked about doing from the City Hall project, moving the money that was going to be expended for that to the parks, so we can cover Hillman expenses and Robert Bridges expenses.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But I think before that, I guess we need to find out how much that roof cost for the Hillman.
Yeah, at this point, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe a guesstimate of what the roof and everything costs, so certainly we're not prepared to do that tonight,
Yeah.
It is very reasonable, and in most cases, most government entities do 2 visits a year, one at mid-year and one at end of year. And that's pretty typical. So if there are expenditures between now and the end of the year, like the project at Parks, for example, we can certainly capture those in the year.
see, where was, I'm sorry, page 3, City Hall.
So, right about there.
Right here. So, 52.5. And we expect. Hillman.
I think, Mayor, I think there was some, on the community center back here, there was gonna be a slab of concrete, to put that, just the hot water heater, and get that enclosed in. Is there still plans on doing that?
Oh, they have got some placement of it.
Yeah, that was gonna be with, some other projects that need poured.
This is what I'd like to see, y'all. With the existing amendments, the 52,500 that we had originally planned for general government buildings on page 3, it's 100, 150, 54, 130. Currently has 52,500 there. I would like to see us increase Hillman Park to 40,000. Roughly 40,000. So if we add $12,000 to Hillman Park, that would give us enough money to fix the roof over there, because the roof should be less than $40,000. That would leave a remainder in that line item of 40,500. So then if we increased Robert Bridges Park to 35,000, from 1,000, that would give us like any repairs that we need to do over there to the AC, anything on the inside, the window, anything that might have been broken that needs to be adjusted. That would leave $6,500 of the $52,500 in that general government building.
Mayor, do you know what remaining work needs to be done over at, Bridges?
Well, I had requested that we do the heating and air, so we can start renting it. I also requested to do, a new system at, Hillman until we realize the condition of the roof. So I'd say do the roof because it is, holding its own at this point.
So if we got the AC at Bridges completed, they would be ready to rent back out. I mean, the window's been replaced and everything.
Yes.
The 6,500, would that cover the, repairs we need to do here for the water heater, pad and all that?
I think we just had to replace the hot water tank over it. I think it was around 1,800, so how much did you say left?
It'd be about 6,500 if I did my math right.
I would say that should work.
So where would we move that underneath? Community center?
Yeah, because that's where it would be. We can check the age of it. If the tank isn't leaking and the age is not showing need, we don't need to replace it. But if they'd, look at it and determine that the one at City Hall was about 27 years old, 28 years old.
So, Ms. Bembry, I'm just one person, so everybody else speak up. But my suggestion is to take 12,000 of that 52.5 and place it in the line item Hillman Park underneath 620 Parks expenditure. And then increase line 100-620-53-115 Robert Bridges Park by 34,000 and give us $35,000 to do any repairs needed over there, for the heat and air, any unexpected expenses that I know how those happen. And then the remaining 6,500 from that line item, I don't know where to put it, but we need repairs done here.
Or could we just move that into a contingency fund? I mean, until we can,
Either, I would suggest that you know you're gonna do the repairs in the community center, I would go ahead and put it there.
Okay.
If you're not sure whether you're gonna make the repairs here,
okay.
That also probably needs to be done, is to do cold snap next year, so we can close that in right there. It's probably the smartest to do it.
So it's 29.
Is there a certain line item that would need to go in under 553?
And put how much in there?
The remaining 6,500 from,
You doing 35 and 12, or you doing 34 and 12?
34 and 12.
Okay, 34, 12 is what I got, and that leaves 65. And that's under general supply, no, repairs and maintenance.
Yep, right there. And that can get us the water heater and enclose it so we don't have it freeze again.
So 12,500 to Hillman, 34,000 to, Bridges, 12,000 even.
12,000 even on it, 34,000 even to the Robert Bridges, and 6,500 to repairs and maintenance in the community.
And then the,
And I have another adjustment for the $1,000 as well, out of contingency.
To the trees, tree and beautification.
1,000 to the tree,
yeah, under 112.
I just want to make a point that I still have reservations of investing that much in a roof on that old building over at, Hillville. I don't feel good about it, but, whatever the, council feels, I would like to see what it would cost us to actually put a new building there. Maybe get a grant or something, but it makes me uneasy to invest that much money in an old building like that, but that's just me.
Would you be willing for us to move the money there? So we still have to vote on it.
Yes,
We'd have to vote on the actual improvement of the building before that happens.
I'll say we haven't inspected everything without kind of put your mind at ease. That's the money that,
I mean, it's an old building, it's been put together in different parts and pieces, is, and for me, I think that if we can look for money, which I believe it's out there for those particular entities, that's what we should do. We should replace the building instead of investing $35,000 for a roof on a actually shed building. That's what it is. And I just have big reservations with that. I think that Salem can do better. I just believe that. And y'all all know that that's been my reservation the whole time.
I know there was a concern about mold built up there, and we were gonna need to get that.
It's kind of hodgepodge, like you said.
And I think that we could do better for our citizens and for our community if we started researching and looking for funding to be able to provide that. If y'all want to go ahead and move it over there, I'm okay with that. It's still feasible and we can.
But I think we're moving the money to Bridger, we can go ahead and get that one taken care of,
Yeah.
so we can start renting that back out.
That actually is right there. No.
Okay, so you're gonna take 1,000 from the contingency and move it to beautification. And you're gonna move the 12,000 of the 52,600. Okay, and that'll go into repairs at the Hillman.
Yeah,
No.
right now here,
Okay,
right there.
yeah.
12,000 goes there.
And then the 34,000 will move to Robert Bridges for taking care of maintenance and air and heating. Was there anything else that I missed? Oh, 6,500 that'll move to this community building.
And that's repairs and maintenance.
Right.
I mean, I think that's all my suggestions. Yeah, that $40,000 that was in, maybe it's a little off topic, but, let me find it. Site improvements underneath 420 roads and streets.
Page, it's right at the bottom. Should be
Five,
right.
page 5.
Page 5?
Yep.
The site improvement?
Was that to improve the shop area over there for the,
Which line item?
it is, site improvements?
Okay, I
120.
got it. 40. That was to expand bring the fence out and expand it for more equipment, parking, and, I believe the dual lift, which was not purchased yet.
Are we still planning to do that? Or are you just holding off to see what the revenues are at the end of the year?
Yeah, he was holding to see where we're at on everything else.
Can we go ahead and get quotes on that? That way we know what we're looking at as far as pricing. If we can get that done, that would be great.
I'll double check,
If there's
but I
money.
believe that's what that was set up for, and I'll
I
check
think
with
that's what it was. I can't really remember, but I think the game plan was to expand that out a little bit and improve the fence.
Okay.
Yeah, that was for the public work.
Parking lot,
Yeah.
public works,
The building, the bridges.
you can go over there during the day, and there's nowhere on it. This is a big thing.
I may be jumping ahead here, but I do see on page 7 that 40,589 is LMIG. The unexpected revenue that we got.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I didn't want to interrupt him, but, we inquired earlier regarding who is paying debt service. That is being paid, in your SPOS fund as well as the police and roads. Those are the three, departments that are paying that debt service. The majority of it's coming out of SPOS.
Okay.
Any other items? Is that all the adjustments?
I have captured the adjustments as you stated, so, it's up to you guys now, whether you'd like to vote those adjustments, including the ones that were presented to you, into the budget.
And you could have those entered tomorrow, and I could print it out for all of the council members? Okay. Is that acceptable? Okay.
If we make a motion to amend it, can we just include all, just say we're gonna approve all the included amendments without going through each one?
A motion to approve the budget as presented with the adjustments.
Okay, all right.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the budget, with the amendments as agreed?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the amended budget along with the adjustments that we discussed.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
All right.
All those in favor? Motion carries. I also included in the, in everyone's packet, a contract which, Counselor has, looked at, made some minor adjustments, and it's been reviewed by Ms. Rachel. This would employ her as I guess, a consultant. And she would be able to, as you all ask, go in and be able to keep us kind of on track. If you all wanted to make that decision tonight, we'd have to amend the agenda.
I think in the best interest, we need to move forward.
Mayor, I do have a few questions about the contract. Ms. Bembry, I see multiple hourly rates here. Which one of those would apply?
Certainly, so, I have staggered my team, to be, most advantageous to the client. So, for example, if we're, doing something more complex, that would be something I would address. If it's a very transactional thing, for example, one of the most immediate things we need to do is file payroll taxes. We have to have those filed by the end of the month. That is not something that we would utilize my expertise for. So in that case, Ms. Mays, would be the lowest rate there is that individual who would, perform that task. So I use the lowest rate, staff person that I have that has the expertise to perform the task.
How about just general questions? Say Aisha has a question, she needs to give you a call and just talk to you about it. How is that factored in? It's like a
Typically, she will have access to my whole team.
Mhm.
We all have strengths, so the areas that we're, most knowledgeable in, kind of how we came through the ranks, is, where our expertise lies. So she would be able to access any of them. For general questions, we don't typically charge for that kind of thing, because we can just answer them on the fly, it's a quick phone call and we're done. For things where we have to sit down and review paperwork or review anything to answer the question, we do charge for those, but it's only the time actually spent.
Okay.
We, had discussed, the mayor had discussed having one of my staff out here like 1 day a week. And so that would be that, that 8 to 10 hour budget that we have, and she would have access to that individual all day to answer whatever questions, and that would already be captured in the time that they're here anyway. So that would be the ideal situation. But certainly if she contacts me, give her cell phone number, if she calls me, I'm not gonna miss on time,
Okay.
for each phone call, that's just not what we do.
Okay.
So would you be our primary source of contact? One of us had a question, we just,
Certainly
and
for
instead
you
of trying
guys,
to track down one of them and go through different people,
No, I've got business cards here, it's got my cell phone number on it, I wanna leave one with each of y'all, and you would contact me directly. If it's something that I can delegate to a staff person to be more cost effective to the city, I will do that. But if it's something that I can just simply answer your question, it will be quicker routes to go to me, and let me delegate it.
That includes payroll. Judge, you have reviewed the contract and you're good with it?
Mayor, I made a small adjustment based on the number of open records requests the city's received recently. Just wanted to make sure that it was clearly stated that it will assist us in making sure that we comply timely with any open records requests related to the city finances. So there was a Senate task package.
And the period agreement begins pretty much immediately through July 3rd.
Yes, ideally, we would sign it before the date we started. I have been working at risk for, about a week and a half now, so ideally, we would sign it with that date so that we can capture that. But, yeah, it would be effective immediately, so.
Okay.
Yeah. How long is this contract for, or the rates locked in, or how does that?
So, yeah, absolutely, the rates are locked in. Since I started this vision in 2016, I've only increased $5 an hour, in that amount of time, but it's something we acknowledge that government's on fixed budget, fixed income, so to speak. And we don't do annual increases to our rates. It is really on an as-needed basis, depending on how our staff levels fluctuate. I can't recall, I think we may have done it through September 30th. Page, I'm so sorry. The last page will give you the duration. I did it for July 3rd, actually. Contractions, we would just amend the service authorization, either, adjust the duration of it or any of the specifics in that task order. But should we need to go beyond July 30th, we would just do a second service authorization.
Yeah.
And refine scope as needed, or.
And I do see where you require a 30-day notice for termination of the
Yes, sir.
contract. Okay.
That's kind of
Yeah.
contract terms, but we're pretty.
Any other questions? Well, first I'd ask for a motion to amend the agenda for the contract with JAT Consulting Services, Inc.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda for the JAT Consulting Services contract.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Kind of got the cart before the horse and did the discussion, but I guess you've asked the questions, so if there's a motion for or opposing, I'd ask for the motion at this time.
For opposing?
No, for or opposed. I'm sorry.
I thought you said for opposing.
Oh, I did too. We were sitting there like.
I'm sorry. According to my wife, I don't speak English.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract between the city and the JAT Consulting Services.
All those in favor? Okay. I had gotten a request late, so I'm also going to ask for a motion to amend the agenda to discuss the ARPA funds.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to discuss ARPA funds.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. I'll yield the floor to Council Venable.
Mayor, I don't know the official guidelines of ARPA funds, but it's my understanding that we're supposed to have these funds somewhat allocated for a project by the end of the year. Maybe I'm incorrect about that, but my understanding was these funds are supposed to be allocated toward the project.
By the end of 2024, but, I mean, earlier, we knocked out the spring, do you have experience with these? I know it's kind of a new thing.
The ARPA,
Yeah.
I do have some, yes, yes.
Do you know the guidelines for using those now? I know they've changed several times since 2020.
I know some general guidelines, and if I don't, I won't speak incorrectly, I'll research it and get back to you, but I will help where I can.
Do you know any timeframe that we have to use them? Is there a,
You have to commit your dollars by the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have for the end of fiscal year 25 to utilize them, my understanding.
Okay.
And I hate to be technical, but what's the definition of commit, I guess? What they,
Appropriate, allocate, commit your funds, and by commit, that just typically is a legislative action that's committing those dollars to that project.
okay.
And then we got 2 years basically to get that project completed. With that, in that period, if something changes, can you reallocate that, or is it, you know?
I believe you can to another eligible use.
Okay, all right.
So I know water and sewer infrastructure are definitely one that together to research. Are roads included in that anywhere?
I have to research that. I know I have clients using it solely for water and sewer, so I know that that's an eligible use.
Yeah, which is something we need to spend a ton of money on here,
We have a little over $1 million, I think, in ARPA funds that were provided to us. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find them in this budget.
538 each tranche.
Page seven.
Page 7, so your first
Yep.
installment is 530,000. Most second installments will be coming in June and July.
So I know we were expecting to get pretty much the same amount of money as the first installment, which would put us a little over $1 million. Which my guess, is a drop in the bucket when it comes to replacing water and sewer lines with the amount of work that's got to be done there. But I know that we're repairing repairs. I watch the guys on my days off from work near the house go back and repair something that they had previously repaired or right next to it. I don't know where the oldest lines are. I think Jordan has said that some of the oldest sewer lines are on Railroad Street and Broad Street, which services the school and the small businesses down here. But I have no clue what a project of any magnitude would cost. I would like to see the funds go towards a water sewer project in these areas that need the oldest lines repaired or replaced. We can get as far as we can get with it.
Mayor, I know I've spoken to Jordan several times over the past year and a half now about it, but if he could kind of figure out some numbers for us, so maybe in a few months we could officially allocate this money to where he knows for a fact that we need to do the work at. So we got a good idea of what we got.
Okay, I can talk to him tomorrow. I think he has been kind of unofficially talking to some companies. One of the suggestions was, and he's waiting on a company to come and camera the sewer lines, and one in particular is, between Jefferson and I believe it's Third Street, where there's a metal plate. I came through in the morning, it was fine. An hour later, it had a pretty good sinkhole. So he's got several places he wants to camera. One of the companies said you could do a liner. We did that going through, I believe it's called Lucille Street here, and goes up past the Public Works. As you all recalled, we had a lot of storm water getting into the sewer line, and we were being penalized at the sewer plant. They were able to put a liner in there, which I think they estimate it's good for about 50 years. So if they can do a liner, it would be a great savings to the city. But I think coming down Broad Street, a lot of that is, there's iron pipe and there's some terracotta left in there. So we'd have to kind of see where we are on that, and what they would recommend. But he's waiting, I think they were 2 weeks out to do that camera job. But, you know, I will speak with him tomorrow about it.
Mayor, I have a question for Ms. Bamber.
Yes.
Ms. Bamber, we have a surplus of funds in our water fund that has built up over the years. Would it be inappropriate to use that money in conjunction with this if we needed to do a project? I guess my follow-up question is, if not, what would that money be for?
So what you want to make sure you're doing in your utility fund, yes and no would be your question, would answer your question. The clarifying point for, would say yes, would be to ensure that the intent of revenues in the utility fund and for the intent of the use of those revenues to be covered, and then it'd be excess beyond that. And what I mean by that is you want to kind of take off the top of your reserve, if it's not already allocated, any expansion dollars, the one-time revenues, things like tax fees and things of that nature should not be used for operating expenditures. So ideally, you have a line item in your net position in your enterprise fund that sets aside those dollars, because tax fees are used for expansion, not for operations. So once you kind of take your reserve balance and pull out, your investment in capital assets, pull out anything that's been committed for expansion services like tax fee revenue and things of that nature, there's excess beyond that that's unassigned or unrestricted, then it could be utilized as a transfer to another fund for.
Okay. I know when I took office 3 years ago, I can't remember exactly how much was in there, but I think it was less than $2 million, I believe, and now we're over $4 million. So it has increased for sure, and I don't want to put the city in any kind of bind by using the money, but I do know that we're kind of, and no fault of anybody here, but we're kind of behind the curve on getting some of this stuff done. We're struggling with water and sewer infrastructure for sure, which in turn hurts our roads, where we have to keep repairing and digging up. So, if that's a possibility going forward, certainly not tonight, and we don't have to decide, but if that's something going forward, then maybe we could use those excess funds to help with this project if needed.
If needed, I would just recommend an analysis of that, so we could take, the most recent audited fund balance and back into, what tax fees have been received, back into what expansion projects have been completed, take the net of those and pull them off of that reserve balance, and then what's remaining, could be utilized. And of course, you want to consider GFOA's recommendation, for reserve. And consider that, that 25% or 3-month mark, which is also where ICMA and your utility, associations also fall in the 3 to 5 month range if reserve is considered healthy for a utility fund. You wanna make sure you have that covered as well, but anything beyond that.
What percentage? What percentage?
5%,
Okay.
so approximately 3 months of general fund expenditures, or in this case, utility operating expenditures. You wanna make sure you have those in unrestricted net position.
Now, is there a process that we have to go through if we decide that there's a project that we need to pull that money from for approval?
It is a council action,
Okay.
by budget amendment and essentially appropriation for that project, so, for that project. So that can be done with council action through the amendment process.
Well, once we have more information from Jordan, then, we'll have a better idea of what we can do or what we may need to do, so.
Certainly, depending on how those dollars come back, we can run that analysis and see what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the ARPA funds? And then at this time, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second? All those in favor? Thank you all for coming.